that's Dr. Eichel came from a historical perspective, but there's a lot to chew on just those couple of minutes there. Now, are you resisting anything today? Because these things are very pertinent, and we could not have chosen a better forum, to discuss, some of these things. Now, we're going to hold your questions. We're going to take it after all the presenters would have completed their opening remarks. So next we have Mr. Norwell Hinds, Framework for Youth Leadership and Participation.
Thanks very much, Mr. Suarez, and thanks very much, Dr. Eichel. In fact, I'm very, very excited. I was on the edge of my seat. So we talk about youth leadership and participation advocacy, and we talk about models of youth participation. For us, we want to speak about three, and we want to talk about direct youth participation, which is involving young people in decision making, in agencies of decision making, national councils, boards, and so on. We talk about representative youth participation. This is young people as representing constituencies, including constituencies of youth, but also, perhaps as Dr. Eichel said, broader constituencies, geographic constituencies. And finally, network and coalition type mechanisms of participation. And Dr. Eichel also alluded to that. She talked about the Political Affairs Committee and so on. So when we talk about the principles of youth participation, for the purpose of our conversation, we want to focus on three broad principles. One, a fair share principle. As the most affected cohort, young people should be involved simply because we are a large group. There's some documents that were shared today that you have, that you might have picked up there, that talks about the world's population, 1/5 of it being young people. It means that at least for the very sake that young people are such a large share of the population, that we should be involved. That is a fair share principle. As a democratic principle, the requirement for people to be involved in decisions which affect their lives. This is part of our democratic constitution, is part of our ethos here in this society as well. And finally, accountability, where there is the responsibility to ensure that policies, programs, and laws respond to the known needs of young people and the most affected. Young people themselves also have a responsibility to participate in the democratic process, and in some cases, to also be accountable to their constituencies. Next slide. So, in terms of a framework for looking at youth leadership and participation, first, let's frame it in terms of rights. As an element of right, inclusiveness, active and meaningful participation of all is a democratic principle. You mentioned that. Articles 12 and 13 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child affirms the right of children and adolescents to be heard and to participate in decisions which affect their lives. The Constitution of Guyana calls for the participation of citizens in the development of the communities in which they live. Next slide. Most affected by societal impacts such as poor health, corruption, etc., not represented at the highest levels of decision making, and therefore a fair share modality ensures the involvement of youth. Accountability to youth implies a shared decision making and scrutiny of public policy. Again, a democratic principle. Accountability of youth sees young people as partners and stakeholders in societal outcomes, and therefore this requires again a shared responsibility both for actions and inactions. When things are not happening, we have to take responsibility for that too. Frame it in terms of results, as a means of enhancing results. We have seen throughout history, and we have seen at various levels of analysis, that involving young people, involving the passion and vision of young people like ourselves, achieves results. Oftentimes programs are done cheaper. Oftentimes we are in tune with the issues directly and can advance them in a meaningful way. And overall, the outcomes are more substantive and sustainable because young people are involved. So we frame it in terms of results. Frame it in terms of roles, as a means of building the capacity of young people. Meaningfully involving young people builds and promotes sustainable youth-adult partnerships, which in turn supports institutional carry forward. And the next slide I think that I have there is this. I was looking last night for something to show the levels of participation. This one, the one that is on the left, this one is the one that is usually used. We move there from manipulation at the lowest level of the ladder to youth-initiated and shared decisions at the highest, at the top of the ladder. The other one I thought though was more interesting. We talk about participation and manipulation at the bottom of the ladder, yes, but at the very top of the ladder it talks about self-mobilization. That is for me conceptually a very different thing than youth-initiated shared decision. This is suggesting to us that there are moments in time in history, moments in our society when there are strong demands, when the burden for change is so great that young people themselves must organize, young people themselves must begin to agitate for changes that they desire. And for me, this aspect of self-mobilization, because the ladder itself seems to suggest that there is a natural graduation in terms of youth leadership and participation. That is not true. I reject that. There isn't a natural graduation. We can start at the top of the ladder at this very moment. We can begin within the framework of rights and principles, democratic principles, and within the framework of fair share, begin to work at the level of self-mobilization. So when we talk about youth participation leadership, we frame it first within the context of rights, within the context of the law, within the context of young people as a large part of the society, and we also frame it within the context of self-mobilization. How it is that we as young people who are the most affected can organize ourselves and create the change that we seek in the world. So finally, I've got just about two slides left. Just to say that we're not alone. On the program, Mr. Bradbury is going to share more about examples of youth leadership and participation globally. I just wanted to share a couple of these because I believe very much in building strong coalitions. We have in sub-Saharan Africa, AFRIAN, which is an Africa-wide youth leadership platform. It came out of the African Youth Charter. It's supported by the African Union, and it has become a platform for youth mobilization activism across the African continent. Arab states, Eastern Europe and Central Asia, YPAIR, this was primarily in relation to HIV, but it has grown much broader. In fact, a lot of YPAIR young people trained in the YPAIR movement were involved in the Arab Spring uprisings. I'm not suggesting we get involved in uprisings, or maybe I am, I'm not sure. But what I'm saying is that definitely young people who work in groups can create change. We have to look towards self-mobilization in the context of shared principles. And I think there's one other slide that talks about responsibility and respect and rights is what we need to get to sustainable development. Means shared decision making, a seat at the table, and hearing our voices and committing resources to our cause. So I think I finished 5 minutes there.